Welcome to the Return on Lifestyle podcast with Rey Descalso from Privada Wealth Management. In this podcast, we help you overcome financial worries and make sense of planning, investing, insurance, and banking. Join us for this journey as Rey draws from his expertise and interviews brilliant minds to help you enjoy life. The best is yet to come.
Hello and welcome to the Return on Lifestyle podcast with Rey Descalso from Privada Wealth Management. Today is the inaugural podcast. This is where you get to know Rey a little bit. I've got about 10 questions for him about his practice, about his history, and then I got 10 questions about his personal life, which are my favorite questions. Good morning, Rey. How are you?
Fantastic and amazing. How about you, sir?
Doing well. It's a beautiful day out, and I'm hoping to enjoy a little bit of sunshine today.
Absolutely.
Are you ready for this podcast?
Yeah, let's do it. Looking forward to it.
All right. Like I just said, we're going to be introducing you to your audience. Share as much or as little as you want, but the more you share, the more they know.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll start off with the questions about your history and your practice. Number one is, why did you decide to work in financial services? Just tell us a little bit about your history.
You bet. So originally, in my first life, I was a minister. And so as a minister, I enjoyed it a lot. But after a while, I realized it was great as a passion, perhaps not something I wanted to do for a paycheck. Long story short, while I was in seminary, I had been interested in investing and figuring out how to amass my fortune. The internet was kind of new. And of course, back in 97, 98, 99, no matter what people did, myself included, everybody was making money. And so I thought, wow, I am truly a genius. I graduated in 99 and my genius faded away as I kind of lost interest. And of course, it was easy to lose interest because in 2001, 2, and 3, nothing seemed to work, and I kind of tabled that thought process and said, well, there's got to be something more. In 2005, I decided that I wanted to branch out into this career, and I still go to the same, church where I was ministering before. But I thought, I want to do something where I can help some people and where I can also use both the right side of my brain and the left side of my brain. And Eric, it's funny because when I tell people my first career, if you will, they often say to me, well, that is so strange. That is such a jump and such a leap. And what I tell people is actually, no, not really. And here's why. In my first career and in my second career, I'm telling people to delay gratification and plan on a very, very, very long retirement. And ultimately, isn't that kind of what a minister does? If you go to heaven, it's going to last a long time. So delay that gratification now. Really, I feel like it was a natural. I enjoyed working with people and so forth. And then as I looked for what I felt like I wanted and was called to do next, I was able to lean back on my really almost what had became for me like a hobby in the beginning and turned into sort of another passion again. And I was able to begin in 2005 at a large wirehouse as a financial advisor.
All right, that's great. Now, fast forwarding to 2018, who do you work with and kind of what's your specialty?
Great question. My specialty, the people that I work with best, are those that are approaching or are in the fragile decade. Now, that fragile decade term is very important because we're going to touch on it in future episodes of this podcast. And it is definitely something that I want people to really understand because the academic literature is starting to talk more and more about it. And the fragile decade, just so you know, is 5 years before and 5 years after you begin taking income from your portfolio. Okay. And so that could be different times for different people. For some people, it's 70. For some people, it's 60. But if you can put 5 years on either end of that age bracket, those are the folks that I'm looking to work with because I need to talk with them and provide clarity to them on just how important it is as they turn that corner, going from building up this massive amount of wealth and then turning it on into an income stream for the rest of their life out of their portfolio. So I'm particularly specializing in 55-year-olds to about 70-year-olds who are looking to settle off into the sunset. That seems to be my wheelhouse, if you will. I also like working with folks who are understanding that it's a long-term thing, and a lot of executives and professionals and doctors and business owners. But yeah, that's really the two groups that I work with most.
You gave us a little snapshot, but can you kind of dial in a little bit on what you actually do for your clients?
When I work with my clients, the number one thing that I do is I help them kind of discover where they are right now. Now, what that means is a lot of different things. So typically when you think about a meeting with a financial planner, it sounds about as much fun as, oh, I don't know, doing your taxes or pulling out your toenails. I don't know, because all you're doing is kind of like, okay, here's all my statements. Can you make sense of them for me? But it's more than that. What I want people to do is discover where they are, not just in terms of numbers, but understand where they are in terms of their knowledge level. I go through a lot of different quizzes almost with them, where I ask them questions and let them get a sense of where they are and where the gaps are. I don't know if you play golf, but I do, and I do it terribly. I'm a terrible golfer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you and I could golf together.
Wonderful. Yes, we should. In fact, a client yesterday asked me, he said, hey, you want to come on this big golf trip me and my buddies go on? I said, absolutely not. There's no way. That would be just torture for everybody involved. But the point of my story on that is that I have found that with a coach, when you get a swing coach, and I've taken 1 or 2 lessons, I was absolutely amazed at the things I didn't see. And so helping folks discover where they are is very important. And then I help them paint a picture of where they really need to be, realistic goals. And then finally, I help to identify the dangers in their way. And so when they come to me, we get as much clarity on those 3 things as we possibly can. And by the way, it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing process because the economy is changing. Politics are changing. Their lifestyle needs are changing. So it's not static. It's not something where you come in, you make a list, my computer spits out a financial plan, high five, and you see me next year. It is an organic relationship that has to also adjust to your life and to the economy and to the markets.
That sounds great, Ray. How do you find these clients that you want to work with?
Great question. When I started out in this business, it was mostly friends and family. You talk to the people you know, and over time, it became their professional relationships, like their CPAs and their estate planning attorneys, who would send me clients from time to time. Over time, I developed a service that I like to call the second opinion service. And the second opinion service is where I'm able to offer to my clients, friends, colleagues, people they think might be interested. I'm able to offer to them the beginning of a financial plan, where we're able to not take the entire wealth management menu that I provide for in a client, but we're able to take the first few steps of that financial plan. And what I find is if they'll do the second opinion service, what they're getting out of that is the basic asset allocation information, but they're also going to get an education on how we apply our philosophy of investing and how it may differ from what they already have, how it may add to what they're currently doing. I also am able to ask questions that they haven't asked anyone before, and also point out things that perhaps a second set of eyes would not really catch. What I mean by that is we will use a quantified risk management style, where we look and identify the risk tolerance of a client and what their portfolio that they have right now really portends for them from a quantitative basis. Secondly, what we do is we want to drill deeper and find out what the real fees are on their accounts, because oftentimes that's glossed over or forgotten from the last time they took a look at their investments. So by offering the second opinion service, I'm able to help people. Some of them become clients if we mutually agree that it makes sense. And some folks are able to go on their merry way, and we part as friends.
Absolutely. And they may have an advisor and they may take this information back. But again, that's the service you're providing.
Right.
That's fantastic. You've talked about the second opinion service, and that's some good education. What other kind of client education do you do?
I'm very, very proud of my blog. And it's been something that I've been working on now for about a year, where 3 or 4 times a month, I will put up what I think is very cogent and important lessons, not just from what we see in the headlines of the economic news, but also a lot of those educational tidbits where we can understand things like, for instance, most recently, standard deviation. Now, I know right now you want to fall asleep when I say something like standard deviation, but what I try to do is I try to explain it to you much like a roller coaster ride. And I draw the analogy to some experiences I've had living here in Central Florida to explain, hey, there are some standard deviations that we got to expect. And I'm able to use that blog to really help educate clients. We also will do educational events for our clients as well, Social Security seminars where we can explain to them how to time it, and then also to help them with their own personal Social Security planning as well as part of the retirement income plan. And then we've also got a series of videos that we have on the internet that you're able to watch and share with friends. And it's a way to remind yourself of some of the guiding principles of how we plan for retirement, how we manage money, and how overall we believe wealth management should be approached.
Fantastic. It sounds like there's quite a bit that you do with clients and with prospects. I know you can't do it alone. So who's on your team and what do they do?
You bet. First of all, the person who runs the ship, if you will, is Barbara Wilkins. Barbara's been in the business for a little over 40 years. Maybe she's been 40 years, maybe a little under 40 years. Great. I can't remember. What's that?
I said, that's great.
Yeah, she's fantastic. So she has been able to see all of the different fads, all of the different trends that have happened in our business and the way it's morphed. And it's really added so much to our practice, both from a operational and procedural thing when she's taking care of client care and paperwork and that type of thing. But also, too, she's able to have seen best practices of what helps clients the most in ways we communicate with them and so forth. We also have two other advisors here at the firm, Jared Coffin and Steve Hartman. Jared Coffin is working on his chartered market technician designation, which is a pretty big deal in the nerd world where he lives. And then Steve Hartman's been in the financial planning and financial advisor realm for over almost 30 years now. So he's got a lot of experience as well.
That's fantastic. You talked a little bit about your location. What do you guys do in the community?
I'm really involved with Florida Hospital. I sit as the chair of one of their foundational boards, the Diabetes and Translational Research Institute for Metabolic Disorders. I've enjoyed that. It's something that is important to me. And of course, all of us here are very involved in our own personal charities, typically based upon our faith and our community and our upbringing. Yeah, we really are in the community and enjoying it a lot.
Great. You spoke about a little bit about your team and kind of their designations they're going after and the value that they bring. What designations or advanced education do you have personally?
Great question. The one I'm proudest of is the Accredited Investment Fiduciary. And the reason I like that one so much is because of the way the word has been bandied about, the concept of fiduciary. And that's something that I think is very important. The idea that when we are working with our clients, we're putting their needs in front of ours. It's a special kind of relationship, and we hold ourselves to that higher standard. That's my favorite designation. I'm also an accredited asset management specialist as well.
All right. And lastly, what is your financial philosophy in a nutshell?
My financial philosophy in a nutshell is you have to know the battlefield. I don't believe in financial peace. I believe that we're really in a financial war. And if we're on a war footing, we can win each battle day in and day out. Now, I know that sounds a little bit dramatic, but ultimately, I think too many people are caught unawares when it comes to their finances. And I want to raise the alarm, and I want people to be alert, and I want them to be vigilant, because if they do that, they're more likely to achieve their goals.
That's great. That's fantastic. All right. Thank you for sharing all that. Now comes my favorite part of the podcast, the second half, which is all about you and finding out about you personally. So we're going to get started with, when you're not working, Ray, what do you do for fun?
Well, I already told you I'm a terrible golfer, but I do enjoy it. And my father's a great golfer. And so this weekend, for instance, and about once a month, I'll play golf with my father, which is, he's 70 something, and he still, just beats me terribly. But I'm a big fan of most sports. One of my favorite sports to watch and be involved in, and I actually will go to events, is the UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship,
Nice.
which I know doesn't sound very sophisticated, but thoroughly enjoy it. And I've had a really good time as a spectator. Never really was able to amount to much in my own personal, jiu-jitsu training and that type of thing, but enjoy watching it. And then, of course, too, with my wife and daughter. My daughter's 4.5, almost 5 years old. So there's a lot of Disney World, of Disney World, and I'll probably end up going to Disney World this weekend as well. Not complaining, but so, my idea of fun probably isn't the typical guy's idea of fun.
No, I think that's fantastic, and you're in a perfect location to be able to spend time at Disney World every weekend.
That's right.
All right. So who is your hero?
I would have to say that for me, my hero is actually my father. And the reason I say that is because they say, don't meet your heroes or you'll be disappointed. Mm-hmm. And I've never had a chance to meet, Abraham Lincoln. I don't think many people alive today have. I have to check on that.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But with my father, when I hear his story and I think about what he's accomplished in his life, I'm pretty astounded. My father was raised in the Philippines, and he had one pair of pants that he wore to school all year, mm-hmm. worked on a farm, had to hunt for food, and just very, very poor. But he was bright, and he worked hard, and he was able to pass enough tests and get on a boat and come over to the United States of America. And he's a physician to this day, wow. working part-time now. But he's accomplished a lot, and he's really overcome so many obstacles, as is the story of so many immigrants who've come to America. We can look at historical figures and so forth, but those are too far away for me to really make a difference. When I look at his persistence, when I look at his tenacity and his the courage that it took to accomplish all that he's done, I have to say he's my hero.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's an amazing story. Ray, if you had all the money in the world, meaning unlimited resources, what would you do?
Well, I got to thinking about this question now that you say it. If I had all the money in the world, I would have to give it all back to the other people because they wouldn't have any of it. It's just you have to forgive me as the economist in me. It really is trouble with that question. But let's just say I'm going to modify the question.
All right.
Okay. Sorry.
Do it.
Yeah. But let's say I had $100 million.
Sure.
If I had $100 million, you know what I would do? I would do what I'm doing right now. And the reason I would do it is I would just have more capital to plug into this business that I'm doing, because I truly believe what I'm doing every single day is making a difference. And I believe that the message that I have to get out, I'll be honest with you, if I had more money, I would just say the same thing I'm saying right now, only 100 million times louder. Okay.
All right.
My wife asked me, Ray, what's your plans on retirement? And I said, the ultimate hypocrisy is I plan on working until I'm just can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't have this, I got to get out 59 and a half and retire early. And I say that's hypocrisy because it sounds, I'm in the retirement business, and yet I'm not really looking forward to retirement, because I think getting out there, educating people and helping them live their best life to have that return on lifestyle is a really big deal and very fulfilling.
And that's perfect, because your line of work, you help people discover what that retirement looks like for them. And some people's retirement is just retiring from their work, but then volunteering, doing very similar things that they'd been doing for work, just giving of their time. And so I see that in the future for you. I could see that you wouldn't be able to put this down completely, and you'd be able to do some mentoring or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well said.
Yeah, it sounds good. I'll look forward to hearing about that too, because we're going to stay connected for a long time, Ray. I guarantee
Excellent.
it. All right. Who is your favorite person in history and why?
I think my favorite person in history would have to be Abraham Lincoln. And the reason it's Abraham Lincoln is because, well, first of all, he's somebody that growing up, you always hear about what he was able to accomplish and how he was able to save the Union and to help bring an end to slavery. But the other reason that I like Abraham Lincoln, as I read more and understood more, is that he had a lot of things against him as he was coming up. People don't realize that for about a year, when he was 9 years old and his sister was 11, his father abandoned them. I think it was 9 months. I take that back. About 9 months in the Kentucky wilderness, to where they didn't know when he was coming back or how much food they would have. It was really tantamount to child abuse. And yet he was able to pull himself up by his bootstraps and find himself in the highest office in the land at perhaps our greatest hour of need. For someone to not just accomplish what he accomplished, but to do it without the silver spoon in his mouth and be able to have that fortitude to do what he thought was right in that important time. You got to admire that.
Absolutely. You're talking about Abraham Lincoln and the success that he found. You spoke a little bit about your father as your hero and the success that he's had just in life and his perseverance. But what is your idea of success?
My idea of success would be very similar to perhaps Bob Dylan's definition. It's where you wake up in the morning and you go to bed in the evening, and in between you get to do whatever you want to do. So I believe let me back up and also say this. I believe the meaning of life is finding what gives life meaning. And typically it is measured in the impact of the people, the impact of the lives that you've had around you in concentric circles. number one, am I the very best person that I can be? That's a concentric circle that's the center circle of success. Mm-hmm. Is my family as well taken care of and as listened to and supported as I possibly can be? And then to my work, and then to my clients, and then to my community. Mm-hmm. And so I believe that is how you can measure success as you look at your roles in all those different ways to yourself and to all your relationships. And are you the very best person in that role?
Great. What is the one thing, Ray, that you recommend most to clients, family, and or friends?
The number one thing, well, there's actually two things, but the number one thing that people just roll their eyes when I get on this topic, my biggest and favorite thing that I recommend to most people is get more sleep. Now, I know that sounds
I would love
silly.
That. No, I would love that.
Okay, good. First of all, I'm just a wimp. I need my sleep. I get it from my mother. My mother loves to sleep. My dad can just go on no sleep. And what we're finding just from what research we can do and so forth is that sleep is just so important. And it is amazing what it can do for you from a health standpoint. And so I'm a big proponent of sleep. And the funny thing about it is until I really applied that to my own life, I used to have to take naps in the afternoon and so forth. And just getting enough sleep, it makes you so much more productive. It makes you so much smarter. Mm-hmm. And you can see the studies out there. So the thing that I recommend to most people is something you don't have to pay a dime for. It's not an investment. It's not something that you have to work real hard at. It's sleep. Do it, folks. Not right now if you're driving. Please stay awake. But when you get home.
Not right now. Not this second.
Yeah. When you get home, turn off your iPhone and go to bed.
Yeah. We have a few more questions that you'll want to hear, so stay awake for the rest of this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
All right, Ray, this is my favorite question. I'll be honest. This is my favorite question of the entire list. Name one thing most people don't know about you.
The one thing that people most don't know about me, when I was 4.5 years old, my grandfather shot me.
Really?
Yes, that's true. It's a long story short. My grandfather was kind of a crazy person, and he was basically 5 years old. In other words, I was 4.5 and he was 5, and we were out playing. And I said, we used to call him Pop-Pop. I said, can you shoot that can over there with your .22? Sure. And he shot it. And so I went and picked it up and put it back. And then, I said, well, here, let me just hold it and you shoot it out of my hand. And of course, he thought, I just hit it a second ago. I can hit it again. And he pulled the trigger, and I have a little scar on my right forearm to this day, where the bullet grazed my arm. I got to tell you, it's a great thing to remember him by. He's since passed away. And funny story, my grandfather said, to my mom, he said, ever since I shot Ray, your husband hasn't really been very nice to me. And that's kind of just a little background on just the my grandfather. Yeah.
So let me get this straight. You held the can up for him to shoot it out of your hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was 4.5. Okay. So that,
I probably would. I'm not blaming you, brother. I'm not blaming you. No blame lies on the 4.5-year-old. I'm just trying to get a picture here.
Yeah.
Holy cow. That's okay. Well, moving on. What is your mantra, motto, or something you say to yourself to keep yourself focused and on track?
Punches and bunches, eyes on the prize. Punches and bunches, eyes on the prize is just something that boxers and fighters say to themselves, because everybody in life everybody in the boxing ring is going for that knockout punch. Mm-hmm. And that's never going to work out, because you can see it coming. The opponent can see it coming from a mile away. And so punches and bunches means it's the little things that you do every single day. Lots of those little things that add up, they add up. And I'm a high energy person. I like a day with a lot of activity and crossing a lot of things off my list. And what I find is if I can keep my optimum motion high, then my day, I remind myself to make my day, punches and bunches. And then the eyes on the prize is beginning with the end in mind. Why is it that you woke up this morning? What is it that you wanted to accomplish today? But more importantly, this quarter and this year, and then ultimately with your life. Yeah. What's the prize? What's the end game? So punches and bunches, eyes on the prize. That's kind of my mantra. Whenever I'm looking at a big challenge, whenever I'm looking at a setback, and in fact, whenever I'm looking at a great victory, when something really goes my way, I remind myself, punches and bunches.
Absolutely.
Eyes on the prize.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important when you do have a victory to be able to look back and see how you got there and realize, you know what, I did it little bits at a time, one step at a time. And I just got to remember when this next big project comes up or this next big obstacle comes up, that's what I need to be doing because it's worked so far. So that's great. I love that. I love that. Ray, what's your proudest achievement?
My proudest achievement was definitely having my daughter Olivia. It's a long story, but we really had a sort of a miracle. We were trying for quite some time, and it was a difficult process. And those who are trying right now know what I'm talking about, the heartache of that. When we found out that we were pregnant, it sounds funny because you think, well, that's just nature taking its course, but it was really just one of those things like, wow. We beat the odds. Yeah. We were able to do something that was very difficult, and we didn't lose sight of it. And so she's 4.5 today. Honestly, I would say she's my proudest achievement too, because she's just such a great kid. And I know everybody says that. No one says, yeah, I got 2 good kids and 1 rotten one. Maybe you do, but you don't say it. But
my dad did. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, about your sibling, I'm sure.
Always, yeah.
Yes, of course. So for me, as I see her become who she is, and I say, hey, I had 50%, well, maybe 49% to do with that. It is just my proudest achievement. I just can't believe it. It's a walking, talking miracle and fascination for me.
That's fantastic. Love that. Ray, we are hoping for a large, beautiful audience for this podcast, and I would more than anything love to hear what you have planned for the future.
We have got a lot of stuff planned. I'm very excited to talk with folks about a couple different things. First of all, I want to talk to them about reverse engineering their dreams. Now, when you hear financial planning, you don't talk about dreams, but it's all about encouraging your dreams. And I also want people to understand why they've failed in the past. And I want to understand what they should be afraid of and what they shouldn't be afraid of. So we're going to talk about the monsters out there, confirm their suspicions about the different things in the economy and the markets. And also, too, identify things in your own personal life that are really just stealing your money. And then we're going to go over how we're going to fix these problems, how we're going to win on that battlefield. I think I mentioned before, there's a big talk about everybody wanting to find financial peace. I say phooey on that. It's going to be a battlefield, and I'm going to help you be armed, identify the targets, and we're going to take them out. And we're going to do it podcast by podcast. And this is really going to be a podcast for people who really aren't into financial planning and the normal boring kind of podcast. This is going to be for folks who want to really learn, relate, and apply it to the here and the now.
Fantastic. I'm excited, man. That's going to be good.
Cool.
All right, Ray, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you all for listening to the Return on Lifestyle podcast with Rey Descalso. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Ray comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Please share this one specifically because this actually will give them an opportunity to learn about Ray, and that's fantastic. Thanks again for listening. For everyone at Privada Wealth Management, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Return on Lifestyle podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. Hosted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Privada Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider for any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. The following program is sponsored by Privada Wealth Management, which is solely responsible for its content. Securities offered through J.W. Cole, financial member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice advisors are unaffiliated entities. The opinions expressed by Rey Descalso should not be construed as specific investment, legal, or tax advice. All economic and performance information is historical and not indicative of future results. Investing may involve the risk of loss of principal. Any tax advice on this show is not intended to be used by any person for the purpose of avoiding U.S. federal or state tax penalties that may be imposed on such person, and each listener should seek advice from their tax advisor or legal counsel on topics that arise from the show. Rey Descalso is not providing legal or tax advice. Nothing should be construed as solicitation of an offer to buy securities. The preceding program is sponsored by Privada Wealth Management, which is solely responsible for its content.